We are at the ResPack conference, and I'm delighted to be with Dr. Swaminathan Sivaraman. He's obviously been here for the past 2 editions, including the latest one in 2026. So first and foremost, Vanakkam, and thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you.
Our aim today, sir, is twofold. One is, of course, to ensure that, what you've been speaking at the conference, and it's been the voice of sanity, which I think almost all of us have sort of said that, is to also ensure that a wider audience understands this, brands, consumers, some of the people in the manufacturing fraternity. So I'm broadly based our session on, your 10 commandments. And so I'll start off with that and then of course we will sort of segue into other things. Yeah.
Sure.
So one of the interesting things you had mentioned last year, and I'll quote you, is that reuse is not the same as circularity. And in that, I think you made 2 points. One is that mechanical recycling merely delays waste, and how the packaging fraternity and the industry at large, internationally and in India, needs to redefine the metrics for what is true circularity. So again, if you can, shed some light on this and what you meant by that, purely from the polymer science.
Okay. There are two things when we come to definitions of these terms.
Sure.
One is recycle, and the other is reuse.
Yep.
Okay. Now, circularity implies that you take a material, you reprocess it, and bring it back to life that would be useful in the same application that originally that product or that material was used for, because that completes this cycle.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if you can also take a material, reprocess it and divert it into another application. Now, that is not circularity, that is linearity.
Got it.
Because you take a material, you use it, and then you reprocess it and convert it to another material. Maybe it has use, but it is still not circular. Circularity really means that you take material, you use that product, then recover that material from the same product, and then convert it into the same product that you used it,
Yes.
and then take it back again.
Yep.
Now, what's the reason why circularity is more important? Because every product that we consume is carbon containing product.
Yep.
Carbon is the basic material that is there in all these products.
Got it.
All plastics are all based
Yep.
on carbon. Now, carbon comes from fossil resources.
Yep.
So, conservation of carbon is the primary goal of sustainability, because we don't want to extract more and more carbon from the ground, because that extraction itself is causing problems.
Yep.
So, once the carbon is extracted, we convert it into plastics. The plastic is converted into a product like a packaging product. We use the packaging product. Then we convert it back to a carbon resource.
Sure.
The carbon resource must go back to creating the same packaging product. Okay. Now, this is true circularity. Now, this way what happened, that carbon that you have extracted from the ground stays in circulation.
Got it.
Okay. Now, obviously, one may ask, how long can it stay in circulation? Now, we don't exactly know, but the principle to sustainability defines that the longer it stays in circulation, it is better for the planet.
Got it.
Okay. The other part of it is that you take this carbon, you make use of it in some packaging application, then you extract this carbon back, but this carbon is no longer useful to make the same product.
Got it.
So you divert it to another product. Now, it's fine, that product may also have some use and application. As long as that product has use and application, I have no problem. But very often that product has very limited use and application.
That's true.
And therefore, or it is a poorly designed product, and therefore it ends up in the waste stream immediately thereafter.
Got it.
And that is, to my opinion, is counterproductive, because then you are wasting that carbon back into the environment, which you don't want, because that carbon gets into the environment in a manner that is not useful. So simply recycling without ensuring circularity is counterproductive.
Understood,
that's what I said. But you recycle with circularity, I have no problem. But recycle without circularity is a linear process, and that is never desirable.
Just a quick follow-up question, Dr. Sivaram, because even yesterday after your presentation, I think in the post-lunch there were a couple of presentations which alluded to mechanical reuse and another one to downcycling, which in a way is also more or less And again, that is misunderstood by a lot of people as you're right.
Correct. For example, I give you a simple example.
Sure.
Take PET, which is a very well-known material, the bottles that we drink water from.
Right.
Now, this PET, you use this PET, it has got embedded carbon, right? The carbon from the fossil has been embedded in a chemical composition in a PET. So you take this embedded carbon, you consume this water, you discard this PET bottle. Now, I take this PET bottle, I do some processes, I convert it back into a PET bottle, okay? Or at least I add that into the virgin. So I reduce the consumption of the virgin resin. Now this is circular. The other way to do, which is what most people do in this country, is you take this PET bottle after use and then you mechanically process it, but now it's unfit to make a bottle again.
Correct.
So they convert into a fiber.
Yes.
And that fiber goes into your pillows and your
textile.
Not necessarily textile, but mostly in the fluff things, in pillows and cushions and upholsteries and things like that.
Right.
Now that's fine. I have no problem. Or sometimes they make
fabric.
waistcoats. The Prime Minister says I'm wearing a waistcoat made of waste PET bottle, which is fine. But that's not circular. Okay, it is linear.
Right.
Okay, it's not circular. The reason is because it does not reduce the consumption of fresh PET for making the bottle.
Understood.
Okay?
Understood.
All right. The circularity implies not only we are reducing the use of virgin material.
Yes.
That means we are reducing the consumption of fossil derived material, which is the long term goal of the society, is to reduce our dependence on the fossil fuel so that we can stop exploiting the fossil fuel.
Got it.
So but you convert it to another product, like you make a pillow out of it. No, it's fine, I have no problem. But then after 2 years that pillow will be thrown out.
Correct.
Now what happens to that? Nothing. It goes back to landfill.
Yes.
So that's what I said. So this bottle, goes to the landfill, but if not today, it goes after 2 years.
Got it.
But if the same bottle material goes back into a bottle, it stays within the cycle.
Got it.
And that circularity is the most desirable goal of sustainability. The linearity is acceptable as a short-term solution, but then the question is, at least in a pillow, maybe it will go to a landfill after 3 years. But if you take, let's say, something like a high-density polyethylene, like your milk package, which you consume every day in the morning, that milk package, that because you throw it in your dustbin, and after that is unfit for using for any other application, it goes to make these blue tarpaulins that you see all over the slums of city, for rain water, shanties. Now these tarpaulins last only one season. In one summer and one rainy season, they are shred to pieces, and then they dissipate in the environment. So ultimately, essentially what you have done is you have taken a milk packaging material, within 1 year you have dispersed that material into the environment.
Got it.
So which is, in my opinion, not really desirable. But if you can take this milk packet and somehow convert it back into, if not milk package or some other packaging material that stays in circulation, then maybe it's a much ideal solution.
I'm going to go to Commandment 2, which is again a point which you emphasized last edition, was data-driven material flow analysis. And you also made comparative with a couple of other nation states who are sort of driving this. And because you were talking to industry leaders, you of course exhorted the industry consortiums to take this up. That there should be a robust data framework for plastic waste. So, A, why, and B, is it doable, implementable?
Why is very simple. If I don't know where my material is going, it's impossible to manage it.
Correct.
Okay. So if I this country today consumes 20-25 million tons of plastics. 20 plus or minus 3-4 million tons, depending on imported products. So now this 25 million tons we are all consuming every day, every month, every week. Now at the end of the day, if I ask where is this 25 million tons of material in this country, nobody knows.
True.
Okay, nobody knows. Okay. we have some broad hunches, but numbers we don't know.
Yeah.
Now the reason is because we don't track that. Now it's not difficult to track. Honestly speaking, it is not difficult to track. And today in a digital age, it is very easy to track. Ultimately, what all materials are plastics, resins manufactured in petrochemical companies.
Yep.
From there, it goes to a processor who makes the products, and from the products, it goes to the consumer who consumes. The consumer discards it and throws it somewhere. Now, we know everything going on because the market data is available. We know exactly how many million bottles we make, how many million potato chips packets
Pouches
we
we are
make,
doing,
how many million Maggi, So I think the brand owners know all these things. They also know where they are distributing it.
Got it.
So at least from the resin to the retail outlet, we have data.
Correct.
Okay. Only thing is we have not captured the data. We have the data.
Sure.
From the resin to the retailer.
Yes.
Where we lose the data is the retailer to the consumer. The retailer sells to you and me.
Yes.
And what I do with it is not captured.
Got it.
Okay, because that goes into the waste stream.
Yep.
Now that's in my opinion one minor aspect. But my question is even that we can leave aside for the moment.
Yep.
At least let me map it from the resin manufacturer to the retailer. And that data is available.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
At least for branded products is available. Now, if you take the unbranded products, they may not be available. But let's at least do for the branded products. Because unbranded products, somebody may say is difficult to do. But for branded products is available.
True.
And that's a material flow I'm asking. Is basically I'm asking how much of it is going into a multi-layer packaging, how much of it is going to a film, how much of it is going to a rigid container, and then ultimately branded and sold to you and me in a shop
Store.
or a market.
Yeah.
So that data is available. I think we have not taken the trouble to collate the data, and I think it's easily collatable in my opinion. And I think this will be very important data for us to manage these problems in the long run.
Got it.
Because without this data, I don't even know what I am trying to manage.
Exactly.
Because I need to catch the larger problem first and solve them, and then come to the so-called smaller problems. Because we always say that when you want to solve a problem, apply the Pareto's principle, 80-20 principle. Solve the 80% problem first before you tackle
Venture
the 20%.
into, makes sense.
Now, if we don't know this material flow, I don't know what problem I'm trying to solve. Whether I'm trying to solve a minor problem, which may make no little impact on the overall issue, or I'm trying to catch a bigger fish.
Sure.
So I think to me, material flow analysis is a very mature process. By the way, the tools are available.
Yep.
I did this for low density polyethylene 15 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. And of course, I did it with a collaboration with a university at the time, a faculty member at University of Karlsruhe in Germany, where they do it very well. So I used his understanding and the processes to do it for India, and we published this data.
Nice.
But it is not a I call it a comprehensive thing, but it's not industry wide.
Sure.
But we showed how to do it.
So
in terms of information. Now this has to be scaled. Across geographies of India.
Correct.
And this can only be done by industry because the data is with them. And for example, if you go to a petrochemical company like Reliance or HMEL, they know exactly whom they are selling it to.
Got it.
Okay. They know grade wise whom they are selling. That data is available. Now those sellers are all people who are processors.
Yes.
The processors know whom they are selling it.
Exactly.
Because they are their customer. So it's just a question of tracking this, and putting it to a digital, architecture that you can capture these numbers. And these numbers, once captured, can be then collated, and that's what we showed. That if we just did it in a limited area, and we can capture all these numbers and actually determine where the material goes, how much of it is. At least up to the consumer.
Yes.
Now, consumer buys it and then he disposes it off.
Yep.
Now, from there, it's a little difficult. But there also, we can, for urban areas, we can do it by by doing what is called sampling of brand owners' waste in the
Right.
waste stream.
And then you extrapolate that.
Extrapolate. So that
Nice.
statistically you can do.
Right.
Okay. So what we can do is, like you say, a city like Bombay or Pune, you take a region, and it's this. By the way, this is it's a statistical sampling technique.
Got it.
And it's very valid, in terms of extrapolation. So you can actually one small NGO has done this in Pune.
Okay.
And they just randomly went to places and say how many of it is Maggie, how many of it is Bisleri, how many of it.
Biscuit
I mean, they
pouches,
just
yeah.
segregated it and just enumerated it like a census. And then, honestly speaking, if you do that in multiple cities through non-governmental organizations who are willing to do this, like Swatch did this in Pune.
Correct.
There are other organizations like this, like Banyan Nation, Hyderabad, they can do it. If you do that, at least you will get a statistical your sampling data, and the sampling data we can model for extrapolating to a national data.
Got it.
So there will be some errors there, but
course.
it's still margin of errors will be insignificant.
The objective is what? then?
Objective is basically to see what is getting into the waste stream. Okay, and what is it that we can recover from the waste stream before it gets into the waste stream.
Got it.
Because that's where the value is.
True.
Once it gets into a waste stream, it gets mingled.
Yes.
Okay, not only plastics get mingled with plastics, but plastics get mingled with paper, with metal, with glass.
Multiple
and
contaminations,
contaminate. After that, that co-mingled waste has zero value.
Yes.
Okay, honestly speaking.
True.
People talk about value in the waste, but it's zero value because who is going to now clean and segregate this? But if you can prevent this co-mingling, okay, then that waste has a value.
Yes.
Okay, from a reuse point of view. But then again, 80-20 principle apply. What is the largest volume of that waste that is being generated in an urban area? And let's assume that urban areas are the major generators of waste, although I do see that rural areas are also equally generating now plastics waste, but we can look at that separately. Then if I know that in the urban area, the waste that is really, which is, okay, the rat pickers have already picked the value.
Correct.
Okay, that is already done. What is remaining is what is of no value, and that we need to know. What is that waste which has no value, which is that even the rack pickers are unwilling to pick up.
Correct.
Okay, if the rack picker feels that he has a value, he will picks it up. Now, I think that's important to know, because that is the waste that we have to eliminate. And that's the knowledge regulatory bodies will need, that's the knowledge public citizens
Forums
will need in order to see how to reduce that waste which has no value.
Got it.
Then what we can pick up and what we can process it and generate value, that process already exists. So the whole idea is the material flow analysis tells me where my materials are going at the end, and where are they ending up.
Got it.
In the end of it. Now that knowledge, without the knowledge, neither the government authorities, neither the public citizens or the
processors,
or the brand owners, the processors can ever decide what is it that we need to avoid.
Yes.
And essentially, what is it that will make it worthwhile for people to recover?
Got it.
Because if something is not, there's no value in recovery, then nobody will recover. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Irrespective of whatever systems you create. And if nobody recovers, it will end up in the landfill. Okay?
Absolutely.
So I think we need to minimize that. So I think this will just generate us enough information to say what value we can recover and what value we cannot recover, and whatever value we cannot recover, at least let's see how to avoid
Makes sense,
making use of it.
I'll move quickly to Commandment 3. So this is about recycled resin, virgin resin. You have elaborated on this in the first two editions. Yesterday again, I think you spent considerable time. Of course, multiple factors, macroeconomy, petrochemical, glut, etc. But you spoke again yesterday about this sustainable model for circularity and this cost premium that keeps coming up in conversations. I think yesterday also two of the panel discussions it came back, and this whole balance sheet argument. And you, of course, were quite sort of articulate in terms of what you said. So again, if you can,
Okay, I'll mention this. It's very simple.
Right.
See, if you externalize certain costs
Correct.
from your balance sheet, obviously your economics are skewed.
Yes.
And but this is not only India,
Of
all
course,
over the world.
Yeah.
We have externalized the environmental cost. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the cost that the environmental mitigation, whatever the environmental, whether it's in water, air, or in ground, whatever mitigation that we have to do, damage that is caused by us humans, that cost is the burden on the government, or in the municipal authorities. And that cost is not reflected in the balance sheet of the companies.
True.
So because of that, who pays for that cost is always a, is a question mark. And since that cost is not embedded in your product, therefore your product looks artificially low priced.
Yes.
But if you add that cost, your product will go up in price.
True,
right?
true.
Now, so I call this a anomalous balance sheet problem, because unless the economics of manufacturing indicates not only from cradle to the gate, but cradle to the grave.
Yes.
Until that gate to grave cost is also embedded in your balance sheet, true sustainability is very difficult to economically justify. Okay. So most people who are doing this, they have a real problem. I understand.
True.
But their problem is because this has to be done uniformly by everybody. Because if one person does it, then he is at a disadvantage in a competitive market, which is what people are saying.
It has to be a collective.
Yeah, it has to be a regulatory one. Now I have a feeling that this will come. I think today the accounting standards are being re-evaluated, and I think the entire life cycle of the products will have to be accounted for in your product cost. So that now there are two ways you can do that. You can build that into your balance sheet, which is a little more complex thing, and nobody knows how each company does it and whether there's a uniformity in that. The other is, which is what most governments do, is levy a cess, on products, so that it's maybe as a flat cess depending upon the nature of the product. And that's basically an environmental cess. Basically that's the money that the state has to pay to mitigate the end of use.
So is this what nation states and the EU do?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
So there's a cess that they are trying to levy, just like today there's a carbon cess. If you're emitting carbon. So this is basically a kind of a tax that an industry pays. And that tax income hopefully will be directed to the mitigation efforts. Now this is the simplest way to do that, and therefore just like we are talking about a carbon tax today for emissions in the environment. Similarly, you could have a tax on plastics products. Like every bottle that you buy, you pay some extra money. And that money should be shown separately in the balance sheet of the company. It doesn't go in the profit and loss. It has to be shown as a cess to the government, like a CSR type of thing. They have to show as a cess to the government. Now, this has not come anywhere in the world. The people are talking about this. UK has started to implement a part of this cess, for packaging products. There's a packaging cess for the packaging products. And so this is something will have to happen, in my opinion. If that happens, then what happens is that the recycling cost will reduce, because then you are paying maybe 10% now higher. I mean, the company is losing the 10%. So if he recycles it, he will recover that. Same thing, carbon tax. So today what's happening is if I emit I pay a tax.
Yes.
If I capture the carbon and I sequester it, I don't pay the tax.
Got it.
So the cost, so people can evaluate the, the cost to benefit of either not doing it or doing it.
Makes sense.
So I think that will happen. I think it's a question of time, because as governments grapple with how to do with the humongous amount of waste that is coming generated, I think they will have to figure out some way of taxing it. And the only way the tax is an environmental tax, is a tax that they pay to, to mitigate the problems of these materials.
Got it.
And of course, depending upon the severity of the product to cause the damage, the tax will be higher, So, for example, a flexible packaging material, you will be taxing the highest, the rigid packaging.
So multiple slabs.
Yeah, multiple slabs. So it's like GST.
Right.
You do that. But unfortunately, today, it is all not done. For example, the industry keeps complaining, and I agree, that today GST on recycled material is higher than the GST on virgin material.
Yes, that's true.
Which is actually counterproductive. So GST today on recycled material is 18%, and in virgin materials is 5%.
5%, true.
Which is wrong. In fact, it should be the other way around. Okay.
But again, we need somebody like you or some thought leaders with packaging intelligence.
People we have been telling the government there's an inverted cost structure. It doesn't incentivize this process.
Correct.
I think they have to understand, because it
Fair
takes
enough.
time for them to understand, but sooner or later they'll understand.
Get it. We'll move to Commandment 4. This is your specialty, polymer science. But so again, you've been, I think, emphasizing this repeatedly, the chemical complexity of polyolefins. And I remember last year or the year prior where additives was something you had focused on. And again, everybody thinks additives is this miracle product. It solves all the problems. But there's obviously some concerns, post-thermal processing and so on. So again, because there's a lot of conversation about packaging redesign, what in your view will be in purely from polymer science and chemical components, that things that must be emphasized in terms of elimination or substitution?
Okay. My first requirement, and I've been articulating it in multiple fora, is transparent disclosure. Okay. Because that itself will solve, in my opinion, substantial amount of problem. Because as a end of life product user, I'm going to now do something with that product at the end of life. I must know, what that product has seen.
Correct.
And therefore, I've been saying that it has to be, as a consumer, but it is my right to know what is inside this product.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think it's a consumer right. Just like, when you buy a food, when you buy a medicine, you have a right to know what you are buying in terms of chemical composition, in terms of all the additives that goes in the formulation. You are supposed to know. Now, I think that similar right of what I call right to know of the consumer must be a principle in plastics product, because plastics products are also complex products. Okay. Now, this awareness is coming around the world. The pressure is building on the industry for what is called transparent disclosure. Now, industry initially resisted, saying that this is a competitive advantage for us. So if we disclose this, we lose. But that argument, at least for commodity polymer, is lost, because now they have all become more or less everything is known. I mean, there's nothing very confidential. In the last 20, 30 years, everybody, generally the people know what it is, but so what's wrong in disclosing it? So this has been my argument, and I've been saying this. So please, and today with all the digital, tagging technologies that is available, I can simply, have a mobile phone to read about. I don't need pages and pages of, disclosures. Okay, so that is the first thing. Once I know what it is, then it becomes easier for me to, even as a chemist or a scientist, to know what of any of these things could happen in the second process. Because that we know it's a thermal processing, and we could learn, we could do experiments, we could figure out what's happening, and see whether there would be any cause for concern. In that process. Now, in some areas, we have seen that these some of these things do cause problems.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons some of these products have been eliminated, in the in the regulation over a period of time.
Right.
But I think we need to have more awareness on this.
Yep.
The second thing is, so this is a voluntary disclosure of the industry, and I don't see any reason why industry cannot do this. It's, I mean, if they want regulator to force it, then the regulator should force it. Yeah. But I have a feeling it's a good civic sense of the companies to disclose it. Yeah. And I don't think they are losing it.
Just a quick question, Dr. Sivaram. I mean, you had a morning session today with Dr. Ashish Lele, and there was this conversation that, for example, I mean, greenwashing, because this also partially to do with that, but that you cannot tell the PCR content of any packaging. So that is one. But on the other hand, you have companies which are making these disclosures in these
No, you can do that.
Yeah.
PCR, as I told you, in the PCR part of it is also disclosures.
Correct,
I mean, of course, some of them are voluntary at this moment. But then, it is such a connected disclosure, in terms of the mass balance, that you cannot fudge. Because if you fudge one, everything becomes complex. So, and I think we assume that, and I think once people put in transparent regulations for disclosure, people will not fudge.
Correct.
I mean, because there's a risk of reputation. They do that. Okay? All right. So that is one. So I think my concern has been that. The second thing is, during this second thermal processing of reprocessing, there are chemical conversions and chemical changes that are occurring in the material, which we don't understand very well today, because this has not been a sphere of study in the past. And this is where I feel more science and research and development is required to understand in a more fundamental level what's happening to these materials, when you reprocess them. Now, amongst this class of materials, even PET reprocessing, undergoes certain transformations. But polyolefins are a little bit more complex, because of the fact that there are many types of polyolefins, and therefore I've been saying that without a transparent disclosure, we cannot answer these questions, which is the end of the pipeline questions. And I still don't understand why we are there is no urge to
take this
do
forward.
This and this can be done by the industry association. There is the Petrochemical Manufacturers Association. There is all these packaging associations,
professionals,
the brand owners. I mean, and I just want the brand owners to do it. Let's
take
not
some
forget,
responsibility.
let's not forget about the unbranded item. Unbranded item will come
subsequently.
later.
So
okay, but if the brand owner should do it first.
So one of the things you propose, and that's your Commandment 5 in sort of thing, was this QR code-based labeling for full transparency. So on additives, fillers, and pigments. Now again,
and inks.
And inks and surfactants, actually, of all kinds. So again, what kind of mandatory, regulatory, technological standard is necessary? I mean, is it like open source? Is it what kind of
right
data
now
system?
Europe is trying to
follow this. Right.
In the new PPWR regulation.
Right.
They have this thing of full disclosure.
Nice.
And I think they normally will set the standards in opinion. And I think we will follow them.
Sure.
Because if you look at the PPWR broad objectives of PPWR, they have very clearly said that there has to be full disclosure of composition of a material. And there what they are doing is that they will have this concept of digital passport. That's what in the concept, where it is a code which will be embedded in your product.
Yes.
And that will have the complete history of the product. Starting from where it was born.
Correct. Correct.
And all the journey it has undertaken till it reached your hands.
Makes sense.
And I think it's so this is like a passport, which is a unique identity for that product for you.
Sure.
So if a bottle of Coca-Cola or a Lay chips, then you just scan that and you should see the entire life cycle of that product.
Makes sense.
From its birth to the time it has landed in your hands.
Got it.
Now, that concept has to come in, and right now some of it will be based on what is called disclosure by the manufacturer, and some of them will be based on simply what I have added on,
Yes.
like to that, because somebody made the packaging film for me, and then I put the label on it. I printed the label, so that fellow who prints the label will have to know what he is using, for printing the label.
Correct.
So all that information is there, but it is not transparently available. And I think that's what they are forcing people to do. And I'm saying that for a large consuming class like India, which is 1.5 billion people will start consuming, then I think this is even more important for us.
So right now, what is the big challenge? Lack of coordination? I mean,
Is
there's
lack
lots
of-
and lots and lots of
number one,
good
lack-
conversations.
lot
but
of lack of coordination, number one, and I think there's a cost of doing this.
Of course,
okay,
yeah.
because it's not trivial. You have to set up the system, and in India, unless it comes to what is called a push comes to a shove,
Yes.
so nobody wants to do anything, because why incur a cost?
Yep.
So I think I have a feeling this is where the industry bodies, I mean, the FICCIs of the world. I've been talking to CII on this matter.
Yeah.
And the FICCIs, the CII, the various associations that lobby with the government for various concessions. I think they have to also say that what is their responsibility in this, and what is the money, and by the way, they are all making tons of money.
Yes.
And what is the amount of investment that they are
That
willing
is
to
required,
make in order to do this,
Yeah.
And I think instead of, so I keep saying to CII, just saying that what concessions you want from the government is fine, but then what is it that you can do to make the process simpler for the citizens?
And also achieve some kind of collective circularity, right?
Yeah. And I think it's possible. I think yesterday I said it's a will to do it, and the collective will of stakeholders in this to do it, and I think we must say that we are all together responsible to do this.
Just again a follow-up to this. I mean, obviously a lot of advanced recycling technologies are expensive, prohibitive in fact, and waste processing margins, I mean, we've been hearing a lot of people say the margins are pretty slender. So again, putting your hat as a scientist, if there are financial incentives, if there are subsidies, tax breaks, because that's what happens in the more enlightened countries, Norway, Sweden, we've seen that. Is there any funding model which we can refer to?
I think we should do it. In fact, I've been suggesting. See, today, how does this country is doing it? They're all doing it through a viability gap funding model. All these PLI schemes are what? It's basically to encourage manufacturing of everything from batteries to to chemicals, to pharmaceutical intermediates, to various other things that you are now dependent upon external countries. You want Indian entrepreneurs to build in manufacturing capacity. What are you doing? You are saying you do it. Your cost will be X higher than, let's say, the Chinese cost. That differential I pay, the government pays, so that you still are able to compete with the cost of imported material, and then you lose the money, but then we give you 3 years or 5 years. Over a period of 5 years, you equalize your efficiencies and build your economics. So that 5 years we balance your loss by funding that we give you.
Makes sense.
Excellence. I think it's a very nice thing. It gives you time to build scale and competition and and this is exactly what they have been doing for battery chemistry, for lithium-ion batteries, blah blah, everything. Okay, semiconductor, exactly. I mean, now I have a feeling that if we have to tackle this circularity issue in plastics, we need a similar PLI model. Okay, we need to tell the organized sectors, okay, that you define the economics of doing this. Okay. Now here there is no import, so that we don't have to worry about. We are not going to be. Nobody is going to dump anything here. So it's only internal. So you have to develop a true economic model of doing it. Of course, that can be verified, vetted, justified and everything. That's a process. And once you develop an economic model and in order to incentivize the consumption of that material, so you say my cost is 100, but I need to sell at 90 or 80. Okay. So the 20 rupees the government should give you.
Subsidized.
Subsidized. But that also they can only do it for say 3 years or 5 years. Because then within 5 years, the idea was you build scale. As you build scale and you build experience, your cost should come down.
Of course.
And then the government should
also build a foundation.
Okay? Now this kind of a PLI scheme, which has been, the model is well established in this country today for multiple products like iPhones and everything was started with PLI schemes.
Right.
And I think there's no reason why we can't apply to what is called organized recycling for circularity. I'm not talking recycling for linearity. Okay, that need not be incentivized. Okay, I'm talking about if anybody who is saying I can convert this bottle back into a bottle.
Correct.
Okay, but when you convert this bottle back into a bottle, it will cost me 10 rupees higher.
Yes.
I mean, let's say. I mean.
X amount,
X amount higher. Then the government says, okay, that X amount I give you on a volume basis, but you supply at the same price as the virgin bottle.
Understood.
And over a period of 5 years, you levelize that cost to the market value.
Got it.
Okay. Now that is ideal, because that way what happens is when I start the business. By the way, I should say that I should also admit that it's not that some incentives are not available. Some state governments are giving incentives for this business. In fact, Karnataka government is giving incentives for this business. In fact, one of the companies where I'm associated with, we are going into Karnataka only for that, because they give me a capital incentive.
Benefits,
so they are giving me I don't have to pay some exorbitant tax on my thing. So some government are giving, but I think it can be an all India effort, and I think that will work, because if you can do that, then I think more people will get into organized structure, because this disorganized structure is poor quality, and I will never encourage that. But I think everybody has to organize, and so but it has to be what is called true circularity, not recycling as a broad term. It has to be it has to be what I call product to product circularity. That's what I mentioned yesterday.
True.
Whether it's it has to be a product to the product. It cannot be a product A to a product B or a product C. It has to be a product A to a product A.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, so we'll move on to Commandment 8th now. We have moved on substantially. So one of the things which actually you red flagged last time was this non-microwavable black recycled polypropylene, and that was very, very scary.
I know many people have thought on to that.
And after that, I've sort of cautioned all my nephews, nieces, everybody who does anything with fast food delivery. I think one good thing was they all stopped, procuring things. But what I wanted to know is, obviously, this is something that requires regulatory action, from FSSAI or a body like that. We had 2 officials yesterday, who were very articulate. So again, this is public safety. This is my personal health, etc. And so, again, misuse of recycled content. How do we ensure? And
I agree. Now, see, the problem is earlier also it was being done, but it was not so much impacting what is called the higher income people.
True.
Because the lower income people were victims, and nobody bothered about that.
Correct.
But today the people with disposable income are the victims, now, see, unfortunately, it does not come under the food packaging regulation, because this is not classified as a packaged food.
That's true.
This is purely, it's just a transit packaging. It's not coming under what is called packaged foods. So the FSSAI says we have no ability to control this, because there is nothing that we can do, because this is not coming under the packaged food. Packaged food is what you buy in a container, which is packaged, and then they can put an FSSAI so that there is no leaching from the container to the product. But this is a kind of it's like a samosa fellow giving it a newspaper.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's not right. You know, I mean,
True.
the ink on the newspaper is leached by the oil of the samosa, and you're eating the ink along with the samosa.
Along with
you
the
know.
VOC.
So, but that is not considered as a packaged product. So, nobody can
Nobody's
regulate
taking
it. Same way, this fast food people, because this is a single-use disposable thing.
Correct.
They want the least cost, material,
course,
because that is part of that overall economics of the thing.
Yeah.
So they are actually getting this from the secondary market, and these are the thinnest containers, but they want polypropylene because many of them they have to fill hot. The food is normally warm. Not microwave. In the kitchen it is filled warm, and it has to be only polypropylene because there is nothing else will withstand the heat.
Correct.
So what they do is they depend upon this polypropylene. Now this recycled polypropylene. Now when you recycle polypropylene, it generates color. Okay, and therefore it looks little dirty. You know, so they put black to hide all the colors, and that's how it comes. Now this is dangerous because we do not know, and also technically virgin PP is microwavable, but I am not very sure what happens to this PP on microwaving. Now, so my only question was, okay, somebody may argue, okay, it's a half an hour from the kitchen to your home, what difference does it make? Well, it makes no difference as long as you empty that into your own containers and dispose of this container. Of course, where you dispose of, what it happens, that's a separate issue.
Sure.
But most people, what they do, they look so nice, so they kind of wash it, keep it, they reuse it. That's where my problem comes, And I think most people don't know because it looks so nice, and especially in kitchens that people don't have, many dishes and things like that.
Correct.
People use it for lunchbox for the kids,
things,
and things like that. So I think there is I think the government can say that all these people should use only what is called natural color.
Correct.
No pigmented materials.
Yes.
And once they say natural color, then they will not be able to use a recycled material because it does not have the natural color. But again, this is falling between the stools. We don't know who is responsible for this. And but now, by the way, there have been I've been speaking about it, and there have been a couple of newspaper
I know, we saw that, that have picked it up,
and they have actually
published
written about it. And now I've seen that some of these fast food, quick commerce, fast food manufacturers are shifting to an alternative, which is a cardboard based,
with a coating or something.
Cardboard based thing, and they are shifting. And I think that's a good step. I think because they are also realizing, because there has been a lot of articles in the last 1.5 years, and people are asking questions. There have been in social media, people are asking whether this is safe and things like that. I think it's catching on, and I have a feeling here. I think unlike legislation, I think public awareness building and public pressure will good enough to stop this, because if I think if more and more citizens wake up to this and say that this is not what we want, I think these people will be automatically.
So, Dr. Sivaram, just curious to know, is there any studies or ongoing research which is going on about recycled polyphen, especially for food contact application? I mean, I know that you were mentioning USF.
All the regulatory authorities globally are looking into this.
Right.
Because this is the next step.
Right.
As you know, with European regulations kicking in, and I think the next natural progression of European regulation will be extending these products to food contact application. Right now, only limited approvals have been given for PET, but they have not given approvals for polyolefins. FDA has given what is called qualified approvals. Qualified approvals means for dry food, they have given some approvals. That is food which is absolutely dry, like a powder or a thing. But for lot of other foods, that is cooked food, processed foods, wet foods, they haven't even given approvals.
And this is USFDA.
USFDA.
Right.
Basically, because that's where the leaching of the impurities can happen, and we don't know what impurities are there in the recycled materials.
Got it.
So there is, I'm sure, when FDA does this, there also must have commissioned studies in various institutions to look at what are the potential hazards of thing, and I think so once they have the data, then they will come up with the regulations.
Got it.
So I think in India we don't have any such studies. I think as far as I know, I mean the only Indian institution that does food contact quality assurance is the Central Food Technological Research Institute in Mysore, which is a CSR institute. I don't know whether they are doing any studies on recycled materials in terms of what food is safe to pack, what food is still not safe to pack, and what data we need to take that decision. I'm not very sure, but I think we need that kind of a data, and that's one of the reasons I've asked the FSSAI people to convene a meeting where we bring in the food specialists from the food industry, the specialists from the polymer science background, and the industry, which is saying that we are products to offer for this application, so that we can set up a mechanism of generating data and evidence.
Got it.
Before we, at least we define what evidence we need to have or what data we need to have to take a decision.
Just a question, this is for my understanding, is mechanical recycling right now the only resort for polyolefins?
See, mechanical recycling is my only short-term solution.
Okay.
Now, then this question will always come, what about materials which are incapable of being recycled mechanically, or what about materials that have already been subjected to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 mechanical recycling and now is incapable of being mechanically recycled any further. Now these are 2 open questions. Now when you want to look at that question, that's where the so-called pyrolyzing these materials to generate liquid products, which can be then converted back to ethylene and propylene. That we call it chemical recycling.
Correct.
So this chemical recycling is, in my opinion, is an adjunct to mechanical recycling. Both have to coexist. In my opinion, one is not a substitute for the other. Okay, both have to exist. In certain situation, mechanical recycling will be the quicker and the more economical way of getting the job done.
Correct.
And the chemical recycling may be the what is called the ultimate. If you want to completely eliminate the landfilling at some point of time.
Got it.
Now, chemical recycling is an evolving technology. The economics, the logistics of managing it. The waste is distributed, but chemical recycling is a process which is subject to economies of scale. So I need to operate chemical recycling. Mechanical recycling is modular. It's just an extruder. I can multiply extruders and scale. It doesn't have a but chemical recycling is energy intensive, and therefore the cost comes down with scale. And it has to be a continuous operation. Only then it makes sense.
It becomes viable.
Viable. Now, in order to build that scale, I need quantities. Now, unfortunately, waste is in smaller quantities but large area distribution. So how do I manage the logistics of that waste? I can't transport waste, it's too expensive.
True.
And so that logistic is what people are looking at today. Today, what limited chemical recycling people have set up in terms of demonstration is they are taking what is called the industry waste. So for example, a manufacturing industry like Reliance or big companies, 5% of what they produce is a waste. And they call it floor sweepings. Okay.
True.
It is all over the place, in the extruder house and everything. So it's called the floor sweepings. This floor sweepings is a waste that is generated within the process. This is clean material, you know, except for some dust or something like that.
Correct.
And this, they are able to do this, you know. But this is a very ideal, you know, to do this from, let's say,
a dump,
or a municipal yard is a tall order, you know.
True.
And so most people are demonstrating the viability of the technology using
very premium
very
waste.
ideal waste, which is what I call in-process waste. And I don't think anybody in the world is still doing it from the distributed
source,
end of consumer waste.
Got it.
Okay, but right now this technology is under evolution, and in there still people are trying to figure out what's the economics of it, because it's energy intensive. And to break a carbon-carbon bond in a polymer, it requires enormous amount of energy.
That's true.
And that energy has to come from somewhere, you know. So, and if you then that some of the energy you will reuse, but still, you know, their energy costs are high. And then there's a lot of purification steps are involved. So it's almost like a refinery, you know, operations.
With a cracker.
Cracker operation. It's subjected to scale.
Tough.
You know. So we'll see. I think it has to build. You know.
Okay. We'll come to Commandment 9th, and I think this is broadly what you've been sort of alluding to all this while, is that all these definitions which are floating around, and there is basic conceptual non-clarity about it. So for example, recycle, reuse, and of course it's, you know, ultimately tarnishing the sustainability drive. And again, I'm just curious to know, is there a method that some of the other countries which have been successful in terms of sustainability, they have concise definitions for two things: to eliminate all this chaos, and second, to also inspire public consumer. I mean, we are of course a country with innumerable languages, so standardization also is tricky, you know.
No, you have touched a very important point. Honestly speaking, around the world there's a lack of clarity.
Okay.
All right. And that's one of the reasons why there is so much of, you know, consumer anger. Okay. Because what they read or what they say doesn't match with what they see.
Correct.
You know. And so they feel that industry is driving these languages as a red herring, you know, to hide things that just by, you know, to say that nothing we can do.
Correct.
They're putting these languages and telling
Obfuscate,
people that maybe there is a solution, you know, at the end of the, you know, end of the day. And and therefore there are lots of civil society, public at large in the world who are writing very nasty commentaries on, you know, that this seems to be, like you called a greenwashing, seems to be a misleading effort by the industry to paint a rosy picture when it probably is not so rosy. Now that's one extreme way of looking at it. And the reason why that is happening is because there's a clarity in communication. Okay, and to some extent people hide behind the language, you know, to not to state the truth, you know, I mean, which is inevitably the manner in which we handle language. You know?
True.
You know, so, but at the same time, you know, there is an effort to bring in some clarity, but I guess this clarity has to be brought by a combination of stakeholders, you know, and just getting together. And there's a recent book that has been written by a lady called Milner, you know, and she speaks so, you know, passionately by saying that the word recycling itself has been misused so long that we have been led on a garden path to say that
everything is
hunky-dory, going to happen nicely, but nothing is happening.
True.
And he says that everything is all over the place, you know, I mean, in the oceans, in the land, and really nothing is happening. So the whole point I'm making is, yes, language is imprecise, and now we have added more imprecise languages. And in this country where you know, where people don't even understand English language very well, you know, in vernacular language to communicate this is
some
even
of
more
these
difficult.
Technical concepts.
You know, for example, nobody understands. Today we say what is biodegradable polymer. It's a wrong. I've been saying it's a nothing called biodegradable
Correct.
material, but people are widely saying, and people think that, oh, it's nice, you know, okay, I can throw it away, you know,
Correct.
it will biodegrade, okay. So compostable polymer, you know, people write all kinds of labels today.
Yep.
And nobody knows what it means, you
Yep.
know. I mean,
Yep.
you know, and I only ask a question. Tell me where to throw this. Okay.
True.
I mean, all right. So why don't you write there in your label? Okay. Where do I throw this?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. So you say, for example, you go to a coffee day or a what is it called?
Starbucks.
Starbucks. You get a lid on a coffee which says compostable. Okay. Now I said, where is your compostable bin here?
Correct.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay. I mean, then put a bin there and say, I throw my lid there. And you say compostable bin.
Correct.
There's no bin. There's only one bin where I throw my coffee cup
Everything.
along with the bin, along with the cap.
And
Okay. All right. So I think we have misused these terms, and somebody believes that if it's compostable, it's good.
Yes.
But you know, but if you don't, you know, you take the coffee cup which is compostable and you throw it in the you know, landfill, it is not composting.
Correct.
You know, because it won't get composted. So I think people don't understand these wordings at all, and I think we need to simplify the language. I agree with you. We have complicated this language: chemical recycling, advanced recycling, mechanical recycling. You know, all kinds of words we have used. You know, and people don't understand.
Yep.
You know, this at all. But I have no answer to this question because I have a feeling that. I always say that when a language becomes imprecise, it means that our understanding is very poor.
True.
Okay? And if your language is precise, that means you understand what you're saying.
True.
And the very fact that today in this domain, the language has proliferated with lots of ambiguities is because I think nobody is really clear. Okay, and I think the lack of clarity is reflected in the use of language, and I don't know what to do about it, because if you ask me what is it you can do about it, well, you can create a dictionary, you can create a lexicon and define, but does it help? You know, I don't know. You know, should we simplify the language? I said yes, but who will do it? I don't know.
Just curious to know, I mean, obviously there's you and we look up to you and you're a voice of sanity, as I've already told you on innumerable occasions. Just, are there other young Dr. Sivarams out there who are doing, you know, the good work or carrying on the baton, as it were?
I hope so. You know, I talk to many people, I mentor people. I hope that they all do that, you know, because it's important that you know, as thinking people, we keep talking about this, because improvements come only by more discussions and you know, conversations.
Of course.
And I hope that people are there who do this. But I can also tell you that the tendency these days is to rush into solutions, you know, and because somehow people believe that you get a credit for a solution.
Correct.
And I keep warning people that in complex problems, you know, don't simplify a solution, you know. I mean, I think you must first elaborate the problem, you know, and solutions can come, but you need to be patient, you know.
Correct, correct.
If you rush into a solution, you know, Harold Mencken, I keep often quoting him, you know, I say that for every complex problem there is a simple solution. That's true. And that is inevitably wrong. You know? so I tell people that problems of this type, where its complexity underpins the entire problem, you know, don't rush into solutions. First, I mean, we have the time. You know, the world is not going to collapse tomorrow. Okay? Whether it's climate change, whether it is environmental
marine pollution,
everything. But I think let's understand the complexity of the problem, and then, you know, we will see clarity in finding the right solutions. You know, and of course every solution will not really solve everything, but maybe it will solve little bit of something. But But today there is too many people saying we have a solution, and that's
Yep.
what I disagree.
Fair enough. Yes.
So,
Thank you very much
yes.
for doing this. Romba romba nendri.
Thank
you.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And so that was Dr. S. Sivaram. And thank you so much for doing this again. And please listen to this entire conversation. Share this link with friends, families, even your foes, because I think there are words of wisdom in this, which I think everybody should pay heed to. This is the Watt Packaging team reporting from the ResPack conference. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ramu.